Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. My hosts today are our longtime comic guys, writers, editors, general everything people at Ahoy and many places before that. Tom Peyer and Stuart Moore. How's it going, gentlemen?
Hey, great, thanks.
Pretty good, thank you.
Yeah. So, oh God, Tom, I've asked lots of questions too. This is my first time meeting Stuart, and like I'm certain I'm going to come up with all sorts of weird questions to ask about your past as we
Yep.
go,
Fire away, fire
that
away.
sort of thing. But we did come for a purpose, so we should start with Ahoy is launching their first Kickstarter.
Mhm.
Um, Next week, month, soon. Go
Soon.
save it. Saving Kickstarters is a good thing. It gets it into the algorithm. I've explained this a few times on my podcast, but we'll do it again. Going and saying notify me on launch, that's a good thing for the companies, and it helps all sorts of wonderful things that we don't understand because we don't code. And if you do code and you know how to make it help more wonderful things, like give Tom and Stuart a call.
Yeah. Why not?
um, but the Forgotten Divine, talk to me about somebody should pitch the book, but then once you've pitched the book, like why did we decide that we're going the Kickstarter route this time? Like, is it yeah, no, I'm just gonna leave the question there. I'm not gonna make any conjectures to go into it.
Thank- Well, it's a self-contained, complete graphic novel that's very excellent by Mark Russell, who only writes excellently, and Russ Braun, who's the same, uh, only draws great. And it's a mature theme. Um, it's about it's real about what it's like to be in a cult from the inside, how it feels, what the choices you make to be there feel like, how small they feel sometimes. And it's about a guy he's a actually unhoused veteran, and he starts having dreams that take place on this alien world that that he's never seen anything like it. And then in a short amount of time, he encounters other people who are having the same dream, and they want to know why, and they can only guess why, and they start a support group which slowly evolves into what we would call a cult. In fact, it is a cult, and it's going to go through all the trauma and weirdness and even violence of the cult experience, and before it comes to a possible revelation of why this is happening to them. So it's a terrific story, and it's beautiful to look at.
Yeah, no, as I'm hearing you describe it and as I'm reading the blurb on Kickstarter, which hits most of the same things that you hit and like ends with the conceivably dot 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 revelation. I'm like, only Mark Russell could tell a story about a cult with a at least ambiguously happy ending. That feels like such a Mark Russell thing right there.
I say this a lot, but Mark's great gift to me is he does like really deep and original thinking about
Mhm.
things and is able to um, write about them so that it goes down easily. It
Mhm.
goes down a lot more easily than it must have for him to formulate it.
Yeah.
Well, he's genuinely
No.
funny about it too. Like
Yeah.
he can take very serious subjects, as you say, and sort of couch them in like genuinely like funny, sparkling dialogue, like and one-liners and things like that. Um, Second Coming, his previous and ongoing book for Ahoy is
Yeah.
full of that. It's just
Yeah.
full of philosophical and theological exploration. That's like a superhero and Jesus Christ, just sort of arguing about whether it's better to punch someone or give them a fish to eat. Yeah.
Well, and I still love the what the first mission they go on. It turns out it's like counterfeit Pokemon cards, and
Yeah.
Jesus heals all the broken bones.
Mhm,
Right,
mhm.
right, right. The superhero beats everyone up, and he comes back to find Jesus has healed them. It's like, what did you do?
And to answer your question about Kickstarter, this is part of Ahoy sort of experimenting and moving out into different markets. The direct market, comic shop market has been in it's been in a little bit of chaos for the last 18 months or so since the decline and collapse of Diamond. And we were in a
That's a very polite way to put it, Stuart.
yeah, well, I said collapse, um, but but the Ahoy was fairly well situated to ride that out because we were a very early client of Lunar, the newer distributor. We were their third publisher after DC and Scout. And they've been very good to work with, and they've kept our stuff getting out there. But it has caused chaos, and it has caused I'm noticing fewer reorders from stores of books, that sort of thing. So, partly as a means of survival and partly just to experiment and see what we can do, we decided to put this one seemed we acquired this book with Kickstarter in mind. It was the plan from the start, and it's been in the works for a while. But we're looking forward to getting that up and running.
Yeah, no, there's sometimes pushback in the Kickstarter creator community when some of the bigger publishers jump in.
Yeah.
I know when Boom came with a Keanu Reeves book, they're like, "Really? You're coming into our area with Keanu Reeves?"
That book did phenomenally well though,
Of of
which
course
is
it
probably
did.
part of the reason it got pushback.
Well, yeah.
But I would have
Um,
done the same thing. I mean, I would have
but
put it through as well.
where I was going to go is I honestly don't understand why more publishers, whether it's through Kickstarter, whether it's through BackerKit, whether it's through Zoop, whether it's creating their own platform, because like
Yep.
a Boom or a Marvel or a DC might have the capital to not have to share with Kickstarter. I don't understand why, particularly with like a non-single issue thing, when you know you've got something substantial to sell, there isn't more crowdfunding just because it minimizes the risk.
Yeah, I don't know the details of this, but I am I'm involved in several Marvel nonfiction projects right now,
Right.
and I do know that they do have something. I think they call it Marvel Direct Publishing or something like that, where they sort of do stuff like they do campaigns like that on their own. I'm not
Right.
really sure the details and how the stuff is sold, but yeah, a lot of companies are experimenting with that in different ways, one way or another. I think Kickstarter is still probably the
Oh,
most central marketplace. Like it's the
yes,
place everyone
certainly
goes.
for like an Ahoy. I mean, I wasn't actually advocating that most companies
Yeah,
should
yeah,
go
no, I
off and make
understand.
their
Yeah.
own. Um, but like I try to take the perspective, I want to see creators get paid for
Yep.
their work, and preferably timely, and preferably not strictly on the back end. Um, and one of the ways to do that is to collect the money up front.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we're in as a company, we're in complete agreement with that, and Ahoy has been well funded from the start, and
Yes.
we've made a point of paying people fairly and rapidly. And
Yeah.
I think that's something as a company, I think Tom would agree we're very proud of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that came up last time, and you definitely have the reputation for that. So I certainly didn't want you to think for even a second that I was
Oh no.
implying that
No, no,
Ahoy
no,
was
no.
anywhere near some of the companies that will not be named.
I've probably worked for some of them. So
I
yeah.
know I have.
Yeah, you definitely
Well, I was speaking more of the ones that have actually had bankruptcy papers come out showing how much money they owe to various Hollywood people versus how much money they owe for the stuff that they were trying to get those various Hollywood people to sell. And it's like,
yeah.
did anybody get paid?
Mm,
No.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was my hunch, was that it was like, okay, we've got a new weird market. This is a great, I mean, There are way worse ways to look at crowdfunding than to start with a Mark Russell and Russ Braun book.
Yeah,
You
that was
know,
kind of how we approached it. Yeah, and we have plans to do more.
right.
But yeah, we definitely wanted to put a strong foot forward at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, your trial balloon here, which hopefully isn't a trial balloon, is like one that is gonna attract attention immediately. I mean, the single image available on the website right now is in and of itself compelling. And
Beautiful.
even before I go down and read it, it's like, wait a minute, this comes from a Mark Russell book. I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah, without describing it in too much detail, people can go look at it. But it's both beautifully drawn and it's it's otherworldly in a way that's sort of exciting in a science fiction way, but it's also like kind of like subconsciously symbolic. Like it feels like it's pulling something out of your head a little bit.
Well,
Me.
and there's just a feeling of desolation,
Yeah.
desperation. I should come up with another D word. We gotta keep the rhythm going.
Yeah, all I can think of is digression, and that's not right.
No,
No.
no.
Dementia.
But like seeing this like clearly unhoused, we know veteran, and you can guess veteran because he's got the camouflage jacket, um, a very military style backpack. Seeing this clearly unhoused, unkempt man just uh, walking out of this, like you pointed out, this sci-fi landscape, but like it's a sci-fi landscape with kind of muted hues, and like even though you're seeing plants, it almost feels like you're on the edge of a desert.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. That's great.
and then you see Mark Russell's name, and you're like, okay, okay, and you go further down, and it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm in. I
Yep.
mean, if you're me, the second you saw Russell's name, you were in. But
Yeah, we both
there
known
are
him
some
for
people who are still silly and don't read everything that he does.
we've both known
Um,
him since for his basically his whole career. He was at he started at DC when Tom and I were both editors there, and did a lot of work with he did a lot of work with the Vertigo imprint back then.
yeah. Did one of you edit Flintstones? Because, like, I mean, if you go that far back with him, that would be.
No, that's Mark. That was Marie Javins actually. She
Oh, okay. Well,
was
I mean,
writing
she's done
magazine.
okay by herself too.
Yes, she has.
I mean, she was just the assistant editor of Mad Magazine. Did you see that?
She what? It was her. She's credited as assistant editor of Mad Magazine.
The I was reading it this morning, and it's actually really good. Last year for April Fool's Day, she put out the Harley Quinn Fartacular.
Hmm.
This year, they put out DC Goes Mad, and
Right.
and Chip Zdarsky was the editor. She's listed as the assistant editor.
That's great.
That's funny.
And like it's all sorts of normal Matt or normal DC writers and artists like lampooning. It's actually quite brilliant. I was enjoying it immensely until I my body remembered that I was allowed to sleep.
Yes. I'll, I'll have to check that out. I've been seeing all their PR for it.
Yeah, no, I think like until this week, somehow I thought that it was just like because Mad's done a lot of like best of type issues. So until like this week, I thought of it as like a collection of various DC spoofs by Mad through the years, and it's not. It's
Hmm.
it's new stuff, and I managed to snag a
That's
copy,
cool.
even though it was going quickly,
Very fast. Wow.
and enjoyed it. Am enjoying it quite a bit. So yeah, no, it fits the Ahoy sensibilities. So like, if there's no ill feelings towards the old publisher, then yes, you should definitely pick up a copy.
Oh,
None at
we're
all.
pals.
None at all. They are
I didn't think there were, but
allies.
every once in a while it's like,
No.
Marie's actually a good friend of mine, and we coordinated with DC when we took on Second Coming because
right,
they initiated the project and they were great. They were
They
great to
were
work with.
right.
nothing but helpful. It was just great. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, like and I don't know if like you hit on one of my how to put it. I like to call them one of the tad brain conspiracy theories. Like I know that it's not true. I'm not vested in them being true, but like they're when they happen, it's like, oh, I imagine it like this. Because like when it was announced that Second Coming was going from DC to Ahoy, I immediately went, of course it is. DC was never going to put out that book. But Mark's done well by them, and so have Tom and Stuart. So
Yeah.
by saying they'd put out the book, that got it all the attention it needed to then go to Ahoy.
Right. And we were already working with Mark. He was already writing Billionaire Island for us
Right,
with Steve Pugh, which wound up coming out later because Second Coming was so far along and we just jumped it on the schedule.
right.
But we already had a relationship with him.
Right.
Yeah,
And Mark and DC had a real like good and positive and peaceful time working this out that he wasn't going to be doing it for them.
I think
right.
honestly that was I don't think I'm telling stories by out of school here, but I think that was a real higher up decision to drop the book. I think everyone in DC editorial up through Marie and Dan DiDio, I think they were all very supportive of it. So
And that's
they wanted the book to land somewhere good. Like they
right.
weren't they wanted it to succeed.
And this right here is an example of something that I've been relatively certain of for a long time, with few exceptions. Like the things that we get really frustrated about at Marvel or DC are much higher than the names that we know.
Yeah. I've seen it work both ways.
The names that we
But
know are
yeah,
generally
but yeah.
no, I'm not saying never. I'm not saying never.
Right.
But the names
Right.
that we know generally actually care about comics. You know, they're doing stuff. I mean, for that matter, I had
Yeah.
Paul Levitz on a
Yeah.
long time ago, and one of the questions I asked him, I forget if this was on or off the air, but I asked him about Superman's babysitter, and he just started laughing, and he's like, "Yeah, I blew it on that one." It's like
Oh,
I
did he say that?
totally, yeah.
Oh,
He's like,
good.
I
That's good
totally
to hear.
blew it on that one.
What was that? What was that incident? I don't remember that.
That was the Elseworld special that had the story about Super
Oh,
Baby being put
the
in a
microwave
microwave.
oven. Yeah, yeah. Kyle Baker
Paul had
story.
them all
Yeah.
pulped because he used the phrase imitatable violence.
Right.
Oh,
But then it went in Eisner, even though it hadn't been published.
Right. I had a
right.
story in there.
You had a story in that volume. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So
So
Paul said that was a mistake. He said
yeah,
that.
he's like, I blew it on that one.
So
I mean, I
he
didn't
said that
have
putting it
the
out would have,
imitatable violence. So like I was just asking, you know, when a story that you'd yanked won an Eisner,
well,
he's like,
did Paul Levitt say that putting it out was worth any number of babies being put in microwaves?
no,
Did he
no,
have a did
no,
he have a
no, no,
number? Yeah. Did he have a quantity on it?
no, no,
Yeah.
no. We didn't get into that conversation.
How
I had
imitatable was the
forgotten that
child?
aspect when I was talking. I forgot that aspect until now.
I just think it's surprising that Paul changed his position on real life babies being put into microwaves.
Well, but again, that wasn't the question. That wasn't the question.
As I remember, they did publish the story later
They
Yeah, it
did.
in a
eventually got
hardcover
published.
edition, which
Yeah.
they thought was somehow less accessible to babies.
Well,
Or big
it's been
siblings.
republished. I mean, it's been republished many times at this point. Like, I mean, again, like when you don't publish a story and then it wins an Eisner Award anyway.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
probably stories that I would give an award to if they didn't publish them.
well, I mean, yeah.
I think I think that I don't think there have been enough baby in the microwave stories in recent years. I think that's a genre that needs to be revived. It's like Westerns. They go out of fashion for a while and then you want them, you know.
Stewart, we always said he's a great baby in a microwave, man.
Yes,
As long as we keep a nice disclaimer at the bottom, I want to make it really clear,
yeah.
22 Panels is not advocating for any babies in the microwave unless you are absolutely positively certain that they are Superman and will do okay.
Right.
But it's really hard to know that with
It's hard to know
Yeah, we're not into imitative violence. I'm not into imitative violence.
no.
that. No, I like original violence.
Original violence, yes. Yeah. Suggestive violence, perhaps. Just violence that gives you ideas for new
Yes,
types of violence
exactly.
rather than imitative.
Yeah.
That's
See,
not fun. That's just derivative.
I am digging this back and forth, and I'm already like, this leads to the easy next question. And Tom's talked about it
Uh-oh.
some the last time that he was on, but I think as I listen to you guys listening to you together, talk to me about the ethos of Ahoy. Talk to me about the genesis and like because this humor that I'm hearing between the two of you, like the last 5 minutes has just been an ad for Ahoy Comics. You have that certain sensibility, that certain sense of humor, that certain sense of like comics are supposed to be fun. Every time Shelley Bond complains that there aren't fun comics anymore, I remind her of you guys, and she goes, "Okay, yeah, except for Tom and Stewart."
Yeah, she's an old friend, obviously.
I
Like
know.
we both worked with her. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Well, when we started just talking to creators and stuff, um, the shorthand we used to describe what we wanted to do was funny vertigo. And I guess we've sort of stuck to that. But everything we put out has some level of humor, some measure of
Yeah.
humor. It doesn't have to be a comedy, but it can't take itself so seriously. And, and I think that's one of the things, that and being, larger than life, like a comic book, are the two things that bind them all together. Um,
Yeah, I think that's right. And yeah, I mean it helps that like the stuff that certainly the stuff that you write usually has an element of humor in it of one kind or another. And that was a lot of I mean, The Wrong Earth, which we launched the whole company with, um, was that it's taking superheroes, not making fun of them so much as just like approaching them with a askew eye and taking what's really fun about them and playing it up and occasionally saying, "Huh, isn't this a little silly?" Like while still telling a very human story. And that's probably true of most of the books, one way or
yeah.
another.
Yeah, that feels relatively dead on to me. Um, and it's what I appreciate. I mean, Ahoy. I mean, I feel blessed that right now there are like four publishers that I will almost not look at the descriptions before knowing that I'm going to read the book, and Ahoy is one of them.
Oh, thanks.
But Ahoy is the one that I know will always also make me laugh and think. Um,
Well, we've also deliberately tried to keep the line small, and
right.
and that helps. It's I think of it as sort of a boutique publisher in that it's a small. We publish a small number of projects and try to give them all a lot of care, and that can mean very different things. Like I was just talking with someone else about this. Like one of the hardest things as a comics editor, I think, which I don't really do anymore, is um is knowing when to get your hands in and get them dirty, and really work on a project, and when to just sit back and let the creative team work because it's very different for very different projects, and different people require different people respond to different kinds of motivation, and different people require different amounts of care and handling.
Mhm. Correct.
Um, I'm gonna ask the softball question. Tell me
All right.
your favorite Ahoy project so far.
No,
You won't do it.
No.
You don't
I
want to
can't do
choose.
it because that means the ones who aren't my favorite will know that they aren't my favorite.
Well,
Yeah,
that's why I never say least favorite.
Yeah, well,
I,
no,
I, I wouldn't say
they
it's
all
my
have to think they're the very favorite.
I wouldn't
Okay,
say it's
they're
my
all your children, is what you're saying.
I
Yes.
have an answer, but it's not my favorite. It's just one that we published that I think we all think was a little bit overlooked, and that's Snelson. um,
Yeah.
So
which
good.
it was is just the story of a washed up comic trying to make a washed up insult comic trying to make a comeback, and it's by Paul Constant and Fred Harper, who's currently doing the Toxic Avenger stuff for us. And it's just hilarious. It's
It
it's it's
is.
it's so funny, and it's one of those things that the genre was all wrong for the comic shop market. Like we didn't sell very many copies of it, but it's just wonderful. It's rude. It's also probably the most extreme sexual and violent book we've published, but all in the most ridiculously over the top, goofy way.
Yeah.
So that's when I would pull out. It's not like I said, and I have to pull my own books out when I say that too. Like I don't want to pick one of my books, but that one always when I think of it, I always smile. Like I always sort of wish we'd been able to crack the code of how to sell that book a little better.
It is great. That's a great answer, Stuart. It is a great book. And yeah.
All right, then I'm gonna ask the similar question
Which one
you've
do we
got.
hate? Which one do
No,
we
no, no, no.
despise?
We're gonna go pre-Ahoy. You guys did lots of work pre-Ahoy.
Hmm.
What's the book that you brought through the grinder from pitch to being, I mean, we have a great appreciation for editors, publishers, etc., the people in between at 22 panels. I actually even did a panel at C2E2 last weekend with publishers and store owners, and I was going to have a distributor, but he had a family issue because, like, it's one thing to make a comic and it's another thing entirely to get it into people's hands. So, like, I have a great appreciation for all of that work that goes. So when we're not talking about your babies at Ahoy, your babies at previous companies, what's the book that you're most proud of having shepherded through? I say this as I'm looking through Stuart's resume as and realizing that you were editing essentially every book that I was reading between 1998 and 2002.
Um, yeah, I guess so. And that's when I stopped editing, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, the books that come to mind. I mean, there's so many of them. I'm very proud of Preacher. Preacher is probably the smoothest one from start to finish, like just in terms of everything working. Um, Transmetropolitan was close. There's some stuff at Marvel Knights too. There's definitely some of the Punisher stuff there. I'm very proud of the Howard the Duck revival that by Steve Gerber and Phil Winslade, particularly the final issue. And that's another one that underperformed a little bit. It was the concept. It was a little weird, but
And
uh,
literally, all you need to say now is Bendis on Daredevil, and
Bendis, of
like
course, yes.
you will have listed all of the books that I was
Well,
thinking
Daredevil
of.
and also Alias, which became Jessica
Yeah,
Jones,
yeah,
those first issues
yeah,
of
yeah.
that are wonderful.
Hmm.
Yeah, so God, yes, I just brain farted. I forgot that one.
No, no, I'm
But
just
yeah.
like it was crazy for me. I pulled up my League of Comic Geeks, and I ordered I had it only as you editing, and ordered it by number of issues, and it's like Swamp Thing, Hellblazer, Books of Magic, Transmetropolitan, Daredevil, The Invisibles, Punisher, Doctor Fate, Alias, Elektra, Judge Dredd. That's worth talking about at some point.
I never worked on
Um,
Judge Dredd. I don't know why people think that.
that's
Like,
weird.
you're not the first person to say that.
Maybe there's
I
another
never worked on
Stuart Moore, and that's why they list
I
you.
do get mixed up with Steve Moore sometimes, who
Oh,
was is a
I
Brit
mean,
was a British writer.
what I will say is that League of Comic Geeks is mostly like it's similar to Wikipedia, where like people put in, somebody typed something in wrong at some point and nobody
Yeah.
corrected it, is what
It's
it
probably
sounds
Steve.
like.
It's probably Steve Moore, who was a good British writer and was basically Alan Moore's mentor. They're not related, but
Right.
he was the guy who kind of brought Alan into
But
doing a lot
but
of
I
stuff.
can even show you the cover that would make people not question it, because
Probably
there's
says S. Moore or something. Yes.
no, there's, there's a Steve Dillon cover that's very preacher-ish, and like if I'm thinking it's Stuart Moore and I see that cover, I'm like, yeah, he would have edited that.
Actually, if it's not Judge Dredd magazine, is it? Because
Magazine.
they reprinted Preacher for a while. So
Ah,
that
then
might
that's
be
the
it
answer.
might be in the back of that. Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
Then it was because they were reprinting Preacher.
Yeah. Okay,
There we go.
mystery solved.
Mystery solved.
Another great mystery of comics solved.
Solving mysteries. That's what we do.
Well,
That's what we do.
ah. And actually, I think you actually wrote, yeah, you wrote one of one of the Ahoy books that I find underappreciated because I love my cats.
Oh, Captain Ginger, yes.
You wrote Captain Ginger.
Yeah. We've brought that back a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it's about a spaceship crewed by cats, for anyone who doesn't know. And I actually have plans for that, but not necessarily in comics.
Okay.
But I have to get through a few I have to get through a few of my Marvel commitments before I can really concentrate on that. But yeah, I love that project. That's that's my, I think you have one of these too, Tom. It might be Wrong Earth, but it's my favorite thing to just sit down and write. Like I could do it anytime. It's just fun.
Yeah, wrongers like that for me.
Well, the last time you were on, Tom, I think was right as you were allowing other people to do Wrong Earth.
Oh
What's it
yeah.
like to have that thing that is like that thing that you can go to anytime and write it and to allow others to do it? Because
Oh,
I
it
know
was a
some people are
catastrophe.
like, it's my universe, don't touch. And some people are like, I want to see how you play in my sandbox.
It was a catastrophe.
It
It was a
worked
mess,
out well.
especially
I'm
my book.
asking how it felt.
Didn't want to say that, Stuart, but
Yeah.
since you did, it was a funny feeling. It was a really funny feeling, and a good feeling. It was a nice feeling to see other people working on those characters. And there's one. There was just Mark Russell wrote one,
Yeah,
and
that's how I met Rob Nyer.
he had
Huh.
uh, Dragonfly Man, you know, the Earth Alpha one, who's like Adam West, acting as kind of immoral
Yeah.
as the Dragonfly character.
Yeah.
In their secret identities, they're doing this huge business project, and they're both corrupt, basically.
Stadium financing.
Stadium
It was
finance.
this is how I met Rob Nyer because it was stadium financing.
Oh, that's great.
And Rob tweeted out, "Oh my God, my favorite comic writer just did an issue of my favorite book, and it involves stadium financing. I think my head's going to explode."
That's great.
And
I'm
I
so happy to hear
responded
that.
to that with, "Oh my God, my favorite baseball writer's favorite comic writer is one of my favorite comic writers and was just on my show. I think my head is exploding. I don't suppose you'd like to be on a comics podcast. I think Mark will vouch for me." And 5 seconds after that, Mark is like, "I will absolutely vouch for him." We
Wow.
talked baseball for like 15 minutes when I was on last.
Oh, that's great. That's
I
And
so
like
remember
10 minutes after that, I was working out scheduling with Rob Nyer.
when that book came out, that was a big day for alt Reddit stadium financing. I remember.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But, so when with you know, the Adam West character wouldn't really act as corrupt
No.
in a story. And I was thinking about it again. Well, Mark's trying to make a point here about capitalism,
Yep.
and I think it's like Bob Haney's Brave and Bold. Everything doesn't have to link up, you know.
Right.
It's storytelling. So I let it go, and I got a couple angry letters, but just a couple.
Yeah, we got some
Well,
complaints. I liked it for that too, and I remember thinking at the time it was one of the bleakest things I'd read by Mark. Actually,
Yeah,
like it was,
I,
there was really no, there's no moral redemption in that story at
at
all.
all, at all, at
I
all.
mean,
But
I
they were all
haven't
so
gone
nice,
back
and
and
we had these
reread it.
Teen Hawk covers,
Right. I haven't
and
gone back and reread it lately, but one of the things that Mark is really good at is making the system the bad guy.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yep.
So when you say the Adam West guy wouldn't be that corrupt, I'm sitting there thinking, like, without rereading it, I bet you the Adam West guy wasn't really corrupt. He was probably working completely inside the law. He was working in ways that he truly
Oh yeah.
believed weren't bad
Yeah. Oh, he had
because
a
he's
perfect
been conditioned to not believe that they're bad and they are legal. And,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's more the way I think
I'm
that's more the way you've handled it, Tom, in at various times, where he has the character has an innate trust of the bankers
Yeah.
who are the important people of society. Mark took it a little further.
He did.
Mark made him more of a knowing agent of all of this.
It was the whole project was through it. Stewart's story was great, and it had Fred Harper art, and Gail Simone did one, and
Yeah,
it
that
was
was
all
fun.
Yep.
terrific all the way
Archie
down.
parody. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just always curious because, like, even with characters that I mean, I was just at C2E2 this week, and I overheard a conversation um between a fan and a writer, and I won't call them out, but like the writer was talking about how they were having trouble reading the new run, even though they like loved the new writer's stuff on everything else the new writer had done, but like they had other plans and so some things they were looking at and going, oh, it would be we really wanted to do that and now somebody else got to do it, and some things they were going, oh, we wouldn't have done that. And
Yeah.
it's so common for people that's like, I spent 2 years with this character, like at least right afterwards, I can't go back. I can't read the next guy's
It
stuff because
it
Yeah,
it's not
feels
my
like
stuff.
going on a date with your ex and their new partner.
Right.
that's
I
a good
don't
way to
write
put it.
books I used to write.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I mean, that's why I was really curious about the emotions of it being not just the thing that you write, but like it was the thing you created and going, okay, you can play
Well, that
now.
didn't bother me at all. I love that. It was flattering.
Okay.
But if I'm writing a series and someone else takes it over, I'm kind of done with the series.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing
So
against it.
it's different between when it's somebody else's playground and your own playground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was just like I said, flattering to have people write a story of
Right.
if somebody was if I stopped writing Wrong Earth every month and somebody else was the editor and somebody else had it, could do what they want with it, I might fall off reading it.
Okay.
I think that's yeah, that's common. I mean, it's different if you're the editor, then you're at a little more of a distance from it, and sometimes
Yeah,
it's almost fun to see what the next team does.
exactly.
But if you're the writer and you're very much invested in these characters, um, yeah, it's you don't want to necessarily stay with it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not right away, anyway. Sometimes you can go
Yeah.
back to
No, it's
right.
again like autistic, bipolar. I'm fascinated by psychology. So I love to,
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
particularly because like there aren't many creative jobs where you hand off your job to somebody. You write a novel and it's not like somebody else writes your characters. You don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there some movie series, there's some TV, but like comics, more than any other creative medium, seem to have like it's your baby until it's somebody else's baby, and that's got to be an interesting experience.
Television can be like that too.
Yeah.
Television, yeah, I can see
You
that.
know, your various Doctor Who showrunners and stuff.
Yeah, but television tends to have more people involved like all the
Yeah,
time. Like there's a you do have showrunners
Right.
who leave. Like that can happen. But yeah, it's not I guess you have had shows where the actual creator has been edged out one way or another. And that like the year Community was done without Dan Harmon, that's controversial among fans, stuff like that. but it doesn't happen that often. It's a little bit of a different circumstance. With comics, one of the things I love about comics, and I've probably said this on too many podcasts, but one of the things I love about comics is if you write a novel,
We
it's all
assume
you.
that our listeners don't listen to other podcasts.
Great, great. So I'll just I'll pull out all the greatest hits. The When you write a novel, and I've written several novels, it's all you. Every word you write is exactly what the reader sees. If you're working on filmed entertainment, television or films, there's dozens of people involved, sometimes hundreds. With comics, it's a close collaboration between a writer and usually one to three artists. Um, and that is that's a unique and very special kind of creative work, I find. Like, and when it all works, when the alchemy works, it's it's almost like it's like magic. It's great. When it doesn't work, it's a mess. And we've all read comics where clearly the writer and the artist weren't in sync. The artist was rushed. The artist was doing something else. You can tell like things where things did, or the writer just took it on because they had a contract. That used to happen more at the major companies back in the old days. Um, but uh, um, but when it works, it's wonderful, and it's a kind of creative collaboration that you don't really get in any other medium. And I love that. I just love that about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Also, a conversation
absolutely
stopper,
my favorite.
apparently. Like,
Yeah, I feel
No,
like you've
no,
said it all,
I
Stephen.
part of it is I started going. I got caught up in the fact that you wrote Captain America for Dummies, and I always think
Oh,
it's cool when whoever writes the For Dummies book is clearly not a dummy. Though it's also cool when they clearly are.
clearly are a dummy.
Well,
Yeah.
are you a baseball guy?
I'm not.
Okay,
No,
I know Tom is. Baseball for Dummies was written by Joe Morgan.
One of the smartest baseball minds.
haha. Okay. Well, but that's the idea. Like, you can't be the dummy and be the one telling the dummies.
Well, yeah,
Like,
yes,
you have to know the subject.
but but that's like baseball for more or Joe in like the shortest terms. Joe Morgan was considered a very fine baseball player until Bill James revolutionized the way we looked at baseball, and then he became known as the greatest second baseman ever. Joe Morgan then for years on TV blasted Bill James, blasted Moneyball, said that it needed to get out of baseball. It was ruining all of baseball. So the idea that he wrote
No.
the baseball for dummies, like
Uh,
one of the stupidest people ever to talk about baseball. He was a great ball player,
He just
but
didn't
he didn't
accept
even
Bill
know why
James's
he was
premise.
valuable.
He was the high evolutionary. I disagree that he was stupid.
Okay, that part I understood.
Yeah,
The high evolutionary.
yeah.
The rest of it, the rest of what all of you just said, it was like the teachers on Charlie Brown to me. It was like wah 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 wah.
Wah
I
wah
didn't take
wah
in I
wah
didn't take in a
wah wah
syllable of
wah.
Stuart's a fan of Magno Ball.
that.
They play in the 30th century with the Legion.
Oh yeah, that I get. Yeah,
Cosmic
Okay.
Boy is like a Magno Ball star, I
he
think.
was. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
he was
Mhm.
good at it. Yeah,
really
he
Another
should
good.
have
Legion
been pro.
fan?
I'm a Legion fan. Yeah,
Okay. I will have to keep
and
that in mind
and
because
Tom wrote the Legion for quite a while. I wrote a
I
couple
know he
books,
did.
but Tom wrote for quite a while.
Because we had a couple of Legion of Superhero roundtables because my friend Johnny is the world's biggest Legion fan. I call him, um, and I'll stand by it.
Here's what I love about the Legion, and I'm probably monopolizing this podcast too much, but what I love about
No,
the Legion is it was started under notorious tyrant editor Mort Weisinger, who, among other things, was famous for asking his young kids what they wanted to see happen in a Superman story, and then feeding the writers ideas from his young kids. And I don't know if that's how the Legion came about, but it feels like it is because the Legion is an insane idea for a comic book.
It is.
It's 24 superheroes, all with different powers and costumes and sometimes personalities. And it takes place in the far future. No adult would come up with this idea. Like, it's crazy. You can't
It
even keep
is.
them straight. But that's what's wonderful about it. It's just a great childlike idea that like some later creative teams, including Paul and Keith Giffen, notably, um, uh, brought more of a brought more of a gloss of hard science fiction to the edges of and world building, and made it into a little more than it had been before. Other people did as well, but that's to me what's great about it is it's an idea that only like a greedy little kid could come up with, like really at base. That's what I love about it.
I never saw
Well,
that.
and my
That's
friend Johnny was that perfect age when it started.
Hmm.
He was, I think, I forget if he's 4 months older or 4 months younger than Jim Shooter. So when Shooter took over, it was like, oh, like literally somebody. So he's been a Legion fan through and through,
Yep.
and I like doing Legion roundtables for his birthday, which is coming up, which means we probably won't catch it quite for his birthday. But we haven't had him for a couple of years because he was chasing Shooter, and then we didn't get him, and because
Mhm.
we were this close to Giffen. We had Giffen booked, and he went into the hospital the morning we were supposed to record.
Oh dear. Oh.
Um, he did come home and go back again, so it wasn't that close, but like we, yeah, it was. But I'm always sticking in the back of my head. Ooh, we've got another Legion person, because I am I'm kind of starting to become a Legion person slowly over like years of being friends with Johnny, and I think we've done 3 Legion roundtables now. But what I will say is I'm fascinated by listening to Legion people talk to each other.
well, I will tell you that their regular series, they've made appearances before, but their regular series started in Adventure Comics number 300,
Hmm.
which I, Methuselah, bought off the stands in like 1962, probably
Wow.
61. So I was pissed as hell because they replaced the Bizarro World in the back of Adventure Comics. And but I came to love them, of course.
Right.
And they both series had this amazing John Fort artwork because he
Yes.
his art had two notes, mania and stiffness,
Yes. Sometimes in the same figure.
sometimes in the same figure. I am a huge fan of his art, and he passed away in the mid '60s while he was drawing the Legion of Superhero, and the last panel he ever drew was a picture of a dead superhero.
I have to say I'll say another thing about the Legion since we're just digressing all over the place.
Sure.
There's a run of those stories by Edmund Hamilton, who was an
Yes.
acclaimed science fiction writer at the time. And
Yes.
something no one talks about Hamilton's DC work at the time is it's obsessed with nuclear annihilation. There's a panel, I put it up on social media once. There's a panel where it's just the beginning of a Legion story, and I think the strip had just gotten more pages, so they were spreading out a little bit. But it's just one of those gather up the Legionnaires things because there's a mission or they have to be called back home. And there's just a panel of two of them in like radiation suits on a planet with just gas everywhere saying, too bad this planet wiped itself out. Like, and it's just the bleakest, most horrible thing in the world. And he also wrote the Superman of the Future stories, where Superman's only weakness, the Superman of the Future's only weakness is seawater because there's fallout in it from a past nuclear war. And that to me is tremendously like symbolic, like of the adopted son of Earth is only vulnerable to the thing that humans almost wiped themselves out with. Like that, I just thought that was, I just think that's great. I just think that's wonderful. But it's all
Yeah.
through the Hamilton stuff. It just pops in at the weirdest times.
Yeah.
That Legion panel is great. I'll send it around to you guys
Yeah.
later.
I'd like to see
Yeah,
it.
no, please. I again, anytime the conversation goes to Legion, I don't know what to say other than Jim Shooter and Keith Giffen and Paul Levitz and Bendis made a go at it.
Yeah, it was weird. That was weird casting. That
It
didn't
was,
really fly. Yeah, but
Yeah.
everybody tried. It was a good show. Nice art too.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
yeah.
But I find it fascinating because I mean, kind of like Kind of like you with the baseball where it's wah wah wah. I don't quite have that. I pick up more words than that, but
Yeah.
like to see that level of passion about this thing that's in this corner of this medium that I'm so passionate about that I'm still so confused about
Well,
is
Magnell Ball brings us all together, I think.
really fun to me.
Yes.
So
Cool up.
yeah, I may be back in touch, guys.
A thing about the Legion, um, if you want to keep hearing about the Legion, is
Sure.
that they did it. They were in the Superman and Superboy comics for years, like through the 50s. They would do this thing where they would repeat gags, like Superboy would meet another superpowered teenager, or he would meet an otherworldly club of superheroes. And what happened was, right around 61 or so, they started to think, instead of doing this story all the time with different characters, why don't we just keep the same characters and build it into something? And so it happened like with Mon-El, and it happened with the Legion, and it really worked out well. And
Right. So it was all about introducing other like superpowered rivals, sort of, or friends or whatever
right,
to the
friends he had
to
to
the
be
story.
separated from
Yeah.
because the air was kryptonite or something, or yeah, yep.
I I'm sending you all this bleak Legion panel, which
Good.
reads
Getting
and
here from
and on a world and on a world devastated by atomic warfare, Legionnaire Team Starboy and Matter Eater Lad respond to the call. The war that wiped out this world must have been ghastly, Starboy. If not for our decontamination suits, this fallout haze would kill us. Yes, it's frightening. I'm glad Saturn Girl called us in. And it looks like there's just buildings toppled and like smoke rising from weird colored smoke rising from everything. And this is a complete throwaway. It has nothing to do with the story. Hysterical.
That's really good. That's really good. There's a panel I love. I don't know. I forget who. I don't know who wrote it at the moment, but it's the Legionnaires are all like in this rec room or something, and there's a big computer, and Starboy comes in, and one of the kids says, "Come on, join us, Starboy. The computer is telling us who it would be the most fun to kiss." And Starboy's like, "Ah, no thanks."
Yep.
They were having a computerized kissing party.
Yeah, they're the war of the sexes issues too. There's some of
Oh
that
yeah,
stuff all through the Legion,
the,
you know.
the great one where the girls kill all the boys and then they have a dance party.
That's right. They put on records. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, we've
Anyway,
probably
All right.
talked enough about the Legion
I
for
was about to say, no, I mean, really only because I do a Legion of Superheroes roundtable and I now need to bring you guys back for it. And I don't want you to say all of the good stuff without Johnny here. I'm starting to
um,
let's say all the good
probably
feel
stuff.
bad
probably too
for him
late.
not here. But I have this is about the time to enter with two of you. It'll take a little bit longer. I have two closing questions that I like to ask.
Are they about
Um,
the Justice Society?
no, but do we need to
No,
fit in time for
No,
the Justice
no,
no.
we do
Society?
not.
um,
Actually, though, I will tell you, since we're talking about the Justice Society, the first issue of Justice League I read was, I think it was a two-parter that was Gardner Fox's last story, and the first issue takes place entirely on Earth 2, and the Justice League isn't in it at all, and I was pretty confused. Like, I knew, like, I'd seen TV, I kind of knew what Superman looked like, and I thought he was involved in this stuff somehow, but instead it's just Dr. Fate and Hourman and all these characters I'd never heard of. I had no idea what was going on.
Did you
Anyway,
feel
that's
burned? Do you feel like
no,
they
I
cheated
was I
you?
was kind of intrigued, but I was confused. So anyway, sorry.
All right.
no, no, I love it. I love it. I mean, my it's probably what separates me from some comics podcasts and what I like is I just like the conversation. If it winds
Yeah.
up being tight and whatnot, fabulous. If it winds up being all over the place and you get to pretend that you're in your living room even while you're driving down the interstate, so much the better. Um, so
Agreed.
I I am in the fifth year of hosting this podcast, and I feel like I live in the Twilight Zone now. Um, my life has utterly changed for the better, just in terms of having fabulous conversations, uh, fabulous experiences that if you told me 5 years ago I was going to sit at a baseball game with this person or hang out with that person, or most recently through a connection that I made only because I have a comics podcast. I had two cars break down in a week, and
Ugh.
somebody I knew through comics went, "Oh, my brother runs a Volkswagen dealership that our uncle owns." So we managed to replace two cars in a few hours inside of our
Wow.
budget, and it wouldn't have happened
That's great.
without comics.
That's
um, so what I've discovered is everybody who works in comics has these surreal and or just amazing experiences that never would have happened except that they chose to be part of this wonderful community. So I'm kind of collecting the stories.
mm.
Tell me a surreal
I
or
wonder if
amazing
it's me. I'm
story.
frozen, or everybody's frozen.
See,
Um,
for me, it's Tom that's frozen, but I can
yeah,
still hear
Tom's
you.
frozen. I can see. Actually, you're freezing up a little now, Ted. Can you say something? There you
I can say something,
go. Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
something.
Um, yeah, I can I can
So,
hear
so
you.
Stuart
Tom,
should go first because Stuart's the one coming through the
I can hear
clearest.
you now.
okay. T- Tom, did you have an answer? Because
I didn't
at
hear the
the
question.
oh,
The screen went
okay.
blank.
Oh, a surreal or amazing story that happened because you chose comics as a major part of your life, something that never would have happened, that you still kind of pinch yourself that, oh, I got to do that, or this happened to me, or, you know, I've had stories from like the kid that came up and said this book saved their life to, you know, walking down I think Italian street with Sergio Aragonés in the middle of the night just talking.
That's great. That's pretty great. Yeah.
So
Uh, Going to England, I never would have made it to England if I didn't work at Vertigo in the early 90s. We'd go to UK, walking down a London street with Jamie Delano. That's pretty good. Um, so I'm going to say that.
Yeah,
that
with me,
works.
I'm
Anything in particular that you loved about England?
Just, well, I'll tell you what I really loved about England was after the convention, the hotel kept the bar open till like 6 a.m. That was great. But I was walking with Brian Bolland down the street, and he said, we passed a building. He said, that's the first police station. And I said, first police station in London? Wow. And he said, no, that's the first police station.
wow. Huh.
So that was great.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the people I was able to be with there, Brian Bolland and Peter Milligan and Annie Grant, and just wonderful.
I'm having trouble coming up with a specific anecdote, but yeah, definitely the overseas travel. The Glasgow conventions in the early '90s were a lot of fun. Those were just a complete piss up. But um, for me, it's probably this is gonna sound sort of corny, but like it's a lot of the friendships I've kept over the years. Like there's and especially like I worked so much at DC and also at Marvel Knights with Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, and Steve passed away about 10 years ago, but um, on a convention trip to New York, actually. But before that, like a whole lot of us would get together. Like the two of them would come over to New York to visit. Garth now lives in New York about half the time. Um, but and Axel Alonso, who was the other editor of Preacher, like sometimes the four of us would just go out, hang out, and I loved that. I just loved that we were all friends, and we would all like they would come to visit. We'd or sometimes I go over to there, but more often they'd come over here and we just get together. There was no fans, there was no comics, there was no
Right.
anything really. We just, they'd get together and shoot the shit, and we were all still friends. That kind of lasting friendship stuff. Grant Morrison's a funny one because I feel like I see him about once every 3 or 4 years, and I edited The Invisibles, and then I was involved in a couple things at Marvel but I came in on the kind of the tail end of those. Um, but Grant, I feel like I whenever I talk to him, we just sort of pick up the same conversation like 4 years later or whatever. Like it's always very easy. It's always very
Right.
casual,
Great.
where I'm not as close to him as I am. Like Garth and I are actually friends and he lives here a lot of the time. So we hang out. But there are a lot of those people who and I will say something else. When you leave a position of authority at DC or Marvel, as Tom, you and I both have voluntarily at various times, you kind of learn who your friends are,
Yeah.
um, because some people really do still want to keep in touch with you. When I left Marvel, and no, it was when I left DC actually. Axel and Garth just wanted to hang out, and I was like, yeah, I appreciated that because when you don't have a when you're used to having a day job and you don't have it anymore, a lot of your instant social life kind of goes away, and it you kind of learn who really wants to be friends and who was just sort of hanging on for the work, one way or
Right.
the other.
Right.
It is
Right.
different. And I was really encouraged that like so many people in comics are just good people, just straightforward people.
Yeah. No, that's similar to the genesis of this question because like the other weird thing for me is I have made more good friends in my 40s than I did in my teens, and it's all
Ah,
because of this
yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep. And most people can't say that. That's interesting. Yeah.
No,
That's
no. I mean, tons of people are still friends with the people that they went to high school or college with. Because
hmm
once you don't have that built-in structure for seeing them every day, and you have to like maintain the beginning of a friendship, not just the middle and end parts of the friendship, it's hard. It requires work. Um,
Yeah, I remember
but
thinking when I went to college, I thought that was where I'd meet the people I would know for the rest of my life, and it wasn't. It wasn't
right,
at all. It wasn't until I moved to New York, got into book publishing first, and then especially comics, that I really sort of found my found my tribe, found my people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I love those answers. Now my longtime favorite question to ask. Tell me something you love, preferably a comic, but we don't really have rules. Probably storytelling, but again with the rules. But something that you love that not enough people around you have experienced, and you'd really, really like them to, so that you have more people to talk about it with.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is interesting. Um,
That's what you said last time, Tom.
Good memory. I have one friend I talked to you about this, and it's Dan Raspler, who was a longtime DC editor, and I for the last couple of years we've been getting on the phone every day and at the same and watching a chapter of an old movie serial together, and it's really fun because there's stuff that's so junk that it's no fun to watch alone, and most people won't do it with you. But Dan and I love these things, and we've become uh, probably top 10 in the world experts on them because we watched like 49 of them together. But
So old movie serials watched with friends is
I
how we're going
love
to
old
call it.
materials. Yes,
Okay. Do you
they're
have a specific, or do you just like any of the old serials?
well, some of them are bad and some of them are much better. And you learn to appreciate, they're all kind of bad, but you learn to appreciate when they're generous. Like when they hire a guy who has a gorilla suit and there's like a rampaging gorilla running around. That's always really great. Or if they hire like a person for a supporting role who's a trick rider and they ride, they get on a horse and jump it through a window or something. You feel like kind of a little spoiled when they go the extra mile. Usually it's just It's just you're in a warehouse and there might be some dynamite and people are punching each other, and some of them are just standing there waiting to get punched, and that's the baseline shit. But if they add anything to it, it's wonderful.
Where do you find them? Are they on
YouTube,
YouTube? Or are
all of
they
them. There's like a
okay?
million on YouTube, and there's some accounts that have a lot of them. But Captain Marvel's a great one. The Superman and Batman ones are great, but we branched out into westerns and things like that, and cop movies. The Dick Tracy ones are great. God, the first Dick Tracy one. Uh, a, a bad guy brainwashes Dick Tracy's brother to become a master villain, which he does, and then Dick Tracy's brother dies. It's the heaviest thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
Kind of
Wow.
like early Dick Tracy comics, or like we did a comic strip
Vicious.
book club
Yeah.
on Dick Tracy, and like early Dick Tracy comics are not comics the way that like you think of Sunday comics today. You know, they're
They're very violent. Yeah, they're quite
violent
the
and
characters
there's
are very vicious.
torture and there
Yeah.
are people who die.
Yeah.
Actually, that could have been my answer. I love those.
The
Hmm.
Chester Gould,
Yes, absolutely. I think no one in the world could have drawn that strip but him in that way and
right?
written it in that way. It's like a fingerprint.
I guess
All
I have to answer this
right.
question, huh? The
Yeah,
Yeah,
you do.
there, I can give a sort of a high culture answer or a low culture answer to this, but
you can do
um,
both.
there are several writers I'm fans of that who don't have the following. I think they should. Science fiction writers that come to mind are Cordwainer Smith, writer of the 50s and 60s, who wrote these sort of lavish myths of the far future. There's another guy I've only recently gotten into from the same period, actually, a little later, David R. Bunch, who wrote satirical stories about after nuclear war, but he also just wrote all kinds of weird short shit. Brilliant writer. Apparently, all the magazine editors loved his work and all the readers despised it. Every time they published this guy's work, they'd get negative letters about it. Um, so, uh, so I kind of like him. Uh, the In comics, I keep coming back to, and Tom, you've heard me talk about this for a while before, but there's an issue of you. I think Tom, you're a fan of you grew up with the Bob Haney like stories. You were talking about him in Brave and the Bold, but also Teen Titans from the
Yeah,
1960s,
yeah.
which are kind of faux hipster and kind of funny. But I came to know his work in the early 70s when he was going through some shit, I can tell you, because the stories are really depressing. There's one where the Teen Titans are um, they're looking for a friend of theirs who's a photographer, and they find out at the end he's been dead all along. There's just stuff like that. But there's an issue of Brave and the Bold called Second Chance for a Dead Man, which I just think it's zany and brilliant, and it starts off with a scene that again has nothing to do with the story. But Commissioner Gordon and Batman are they're pinned down behind a police car, and there's just machine gun fire coming out of a warehouse, like nonstop, like this. And Commissioner's saying, "Yeah, the gang's like in there, and they've got all these guns." And Batman says, "Well, I'm afraid it's come, Commissioner, the hour of the gun." And he opens the trunk of a police car, pulls out a big machine gun, and Batman just leaps over the car, firing this big machine gun. This is in a Batman comic book. Um, and at the end, it turns out, he was there, he was shooting blanks, but he confused the criminals enough, and they catch him. So that's just the first two pages. Has nothing to do with the story. The rest of it is Batman's infiltrating a crime syndicate, screws everything up, gets gets the guys on the run suspicious. He's like, "Well, I need some help." Calls in Deadman to help. And then he proceeds to be a complete shit to Deadman for the entire story. Like he's just like berating him all the time. Deadman goes soft on the one of the criminals, the woman who helps run this fake spa that gives criminals new faces. Incidentally, somewhere in this, they find out that Batman's Batman, and they give him plastic surgery to look like a criminal, and he's on the run while police helicopters are shooting at him from the sky, and then he just goes back to normal. Like they just change him back to normal. Um, but at the end, um, Deadman has a vision in the middle of it from his god Ramakrishna, who gives him some enigmatic advice, like to gain your heart's desire, you must lose it. And he comes to read, I gotta let this woman die. Then she'll rise as a ghost like me and we'll be together. So he lets this woman get shot and she just dies. And it ends with Batman saying, I feel a little bad about Dead Man. I wonder what happened, And Dead Man's on his knees screaming to his God, why did you lie to me? And I just love that. That taught me as a kid, if you put your faith in a deity that you believe in, it will lie to you and leave you alone for the rest of your life in sorrow. And I
I'm going
thought
to
that
do
was a
you a
great
huge favor.
I thought that was a great lesson to
Great
impart to
lesson.
kids.
Yeah,
I'm sure I just went on far too long about that,
that should
but
be in all
No,
the
no.
that should be
My
in all the
my
first
only
grade readers.
annoyance is that the mascot of 22 panels, Eddie the cat, decided to start knocking things over just as you were starting. So I caught Bob Haney and did you say Brave and the Bold?
we're in the boat. Yeah, you can play it back later.
Yeah. I have a there's a Bob Haney Brave and Bold story where Batman is briefly possessed by the ghost of a pirate, and there's this wonderful panel I love where he goes into this place and he like bangs his fist on the counter and goes, "Some rum, my thirst, she is great." It's Batman in costume.
There's also that great issue where he recruits, I think it's the 100th issue or something. He recruits a whole bunch of people, including Black Canary, to help him. But she doesn't really carry out her assignment because the rain gets her hair wet and she has to go into a salon and get it dried out. It's
Yeah.
not great, but that might have been Jim Aparo's first issue. It looks great, but it's not an enlightened story. Let's put it that way.
But the best review I ever got in my life
So
that really was it was on a blog, and that person said was reviewing DC 2000 and said, in the spirit of crazy Bob Kanigher and crazy Bob Haney, he was going to name me Crazy Tom Peyer.
That's
And
great.
I'll take that. I want that on my tombstone.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to be working with Crazy Tom Peyer. I think
Thank
that's
you. Thank you. That is mutual.
the
well, I think a certain feline
yeah,
person
Eddie
joined the
is
podcast.
deciding that I should
Uh,
be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Normally
I,
he is more playful rather than strictly destructive, but he's in a mood today.
you can't see
Uh
my cat, but she's been passed out like right behind me on a couch. She's 18 years old. She sleeps like almost all the time.
yeah,
But,
that's
she's
my
not
dog. When I was leaning off screen, it was because my dog suddenly like slipped behind my chair into the closet next to me and was scratching the floor. So I was trying to figure out what he was doing.
Mhm.
So the animals are being interesting right now, but it has been an absolute joy, gentlemen. I will likely be in touch sooner rather than later to see if I can talk you into coming back and talking Legion of Superheroes with somebody who actually knows Legion of Superheroes. Um, because those are fun conversations. I love everything that you're doing at Ahoy. The Kickstarter is The Forgotten Divine by Mark
Yes.
Russell and Russ Braun. Do we have a date where that's going live yet, or is that
Not
still
solid, not a solid date. It'll probably be
okay?
sometime in May, but we're not sure exactly when.
Okay. Well, this is where I'll say keep going and saving the project. You know, the more people click to say I'm following this,
Yes.
notify me on launch, the sooner it gets launched. I have found. Um, because it's much easier to launch if you're like, oh, we have enough people who might back it immediately that we could fund instantaneously, and it's sometimes really fun to watch the numbers. Terry Moore's first
Yeah.
Kickstarter, um, I I went, I got notified on launch. When I got notified, it was at like, or when I got to the site, nobody had backed it yet because I was there in the first seconds. By the time I had picked out my thing, it was up over 3,000. By the time I got through the checkout, it was up over 20,000. By the time I was done writing the email to Terry, it was up over. He wrote back to me, it was like 100,000, and all of this was in the span of like 2.5 minutes, and he's like, "Oh, I guess I can do this Kickstarter thing."
Hmm. Yep. Well, we're
There
fingers
there
crossed.
are people interested. But it's funny to watch the numbers like spiraling in real time.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
So, and I gotta believe a Mark Russell Ahoy book is gonna have that sort of. I would be shocked if you guys aren't funded really fast.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
Unless you have a god awfully large funding goal, in which case, thank you for paying Mark so well. And
I
it'll
should
take a little bit longer.
I should say we have a really good team working on this, and both David Hyde and Kit Callaghan, who work with us on this, are veterans
Yeah,
of between them over 100 Kickstarter
right,
campaigns,
right.
and so we're leaving the
No,
nuts and bolts to them. We're letting them sort of fine tune how all that works
right.
with the rewards and the goals.
I need to reach out to David Hyde because aside from running Superfan Productions, which is how I've found it even easier to get interview people than it was before, because that was the most surprising thing about starting a podcast is like everybody you write to in comics says, "Sure, I'll come on your podcast."
Yep.
Hmm.
um,
David would be good for a baseball roundtable too.
That's
that was
true. Yeah.
exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is Mark Chiarello on the last baseball roundtable is like, if you talk to David Hyde, he's a really big baseball fan too.
Yeah, he'd be very good.
So, Tom Stewart, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
It's been
This
a
is great.
joy. So for Tom Peyer and Stuart Moore, this has been 22 panels, and we will see you after the next.